Kevin McCullough, glad you're with us live from election headquarters in Extreme Media Studios in New York City. The Kevin McCullough Show coming to you live weekdays on FamilyNet Television and on FamilyNet Radio and on TheBingeThinker.com all across the country, the world, the globe, with our analysis of elections 2010. It was a late night for a lot of people. According to Ed Morrissey, who we just spoke with, the Republicans picked up 60 seats in the House. 39 would have given them a simple majority, and they would have controlled the agenda, and 6 Senate seats so far. My prediction of 8 seats is still in play if we pick up either Colorado and, well, we have to get Colorado and Washington because Alaska is going to hold for either Lisa Murkowski or Joe Miller. Republicans will retain that seat. But we've enjoyed having a lot of different perspectives on the broadcast today, talking about different elements of who voted, how they voted, why they voted, what was motivating their vote. And it's exciting to talk with our next guest because she's a regular with the Extreme Media crew. She writes for the Binge Thinker magazine, and she is also a talented blogger, one of the most important bloggers you need to be reading if you're not reading her, at DemiBardsley.com, and she's also with Concerned Women for America. Demi, good morning. Welcome to New York.
Good morning.
How are things in the nation's capital this morning? You think there's going to be a sour mood on the face of the majority of the Democratic staffers that work in the Capitol?
Probably. I'm not riding the metro into work today. That's all I know.
Okay. Very good. Demi, I asked you yesterday to be keeping your eye on the youth vote and the voting of women in this election. And before we get to how people did vote, I want to talk to you about what, from your perspective, it means to you as a professional woman in America today to have so many races in which women were the primary candidates. They came out and they made very strong cases. In California, you had Fiorina and Boxer going head-to-head. In places like Nevada, you had a very strong woman in Sharon Angle taking on Harry Reid. In South Carolina, a very strong woman won the governorship in Nikki Haley. And Sarah Palin, to some degree, a kingmaker in a lot of races, tapping those that she thought would be helped by it with an endorsement. Some of them not so successful, like Christine O'Donnell and Linda McMahon. But the role of the woman in 2010, what are your thoughts about where women are at in American politics today?
Well, it was huge. I mean, besides the candidates that you listed, obviously the women who had PACs like Sarah Palin and Michelle Bachmann are women who were propelled to success because of the Mama Grizzly title. I mean, these are women who reflect how we as women really feel and how we are motivated at the voting booth. It's not by the feminist ideology anymore. It's by what we want to see to protecting our families. We don't want health care that's going to limit our relationships with our doctors and health care for our families and things like that.
Yeah. I don't recall an election in my lifetime in which you had so many women in so many competitive races. Do you think that this election is a precursor for a woman at the top of the ticket in either party in 2012?
In the presidential election?
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I think Sarah Palin definitely paved that road. But there are a lot of men rising up as leaders, too, that women are looking to for the same reason. So we'll see. I'm not sure we're going to see a woman in the front, but we'll see.
Well, it was interesting. 2 days before the election, they did a poll of Democratic constituents, and 47% said for the first time they would like to see President Obama challenged in the primary. Mm-hmm. I think that it is obvious if anybody's going to, Hillary Clinton would be the one to challenge him. And I would, if I was President Obama, I would be seriously considering compromising with my enemies or opponents, as he likes to describe them, because if he doesn't get anything done for the next 2 years, if we're still at 10 going on 11% unemployment and 22% underemployment across the country, I could see a Hillary candidacy being devastating to the sitting president.
I think that's a really good point. And I think it's really interesting that yesterday NPR was reporting that voters who were coming out in droves yesterday were disillusioned not by Democrats and their ideology, but just in general by incumbents. I thought that was ridiculous because we absolutely are disillusioned by the Obama doctrine, if you will. And jobs are not being gained, and almost all of his promises that he made are not being fulfilled. So he's definitely in danger of having a challenger in his party.
Of course, the last time that happened was Ted Kennedy in what was conceived then as the worst presidency of recent history, the presidency of Jimmy Carter. He was running for re-election, and they did take it all the way to the convention, did have a fight on the floor, did go into backroom bargaining, and did finally come out and allow Jimmy Carter to be renominated. I think that we are economically, in terms of kind of the malaise of the people, I think that there are so many parallels between where we're at with Obama and what happened in that race. We very well could see things go that direction. Let's shift to the Republican side of the discussion, though, because what you have, and last night I thought it was kind of quaint of Fox. They got Geraldine Ferraro and Sarah Palin on the screen at the same time. The only two women that have ever stood for election on the in the president or vice presidential positions, and there was a lot of cordial discussion back and forth. Geraldine Ferraro did not particularly think that the women in these races had been particularly mistreated in a lot of cases. I know that Christine O'Donnell, someone you know well, Nikki Haley, others would feel very differently. How do you think women were treated as candidates in the races this year?
I think it speaks volumes that when you have the National Organization of Women, which is an outright liberal, feminist, extreme organization for women, are coming out to protect these conservative women candidates because of the attacks they're getting. So I wouldn't agree with Geraldine Ferraro. I would say definitely these women have been hit where it hurts and where it counts, and it's unfair, it's sexist.
Yeah. Well, some of them were victorious, some of them weren't, but it was an interesting thing to watch. Demi, let's shift gears a little bit, because you've got younger brothers and sisters. You are a young professional yourself. The under 30 vote is always something that is very important to the elections. What do we know at this stage about how young people embraced this election cycle? Was there animus, agitation, or interest and engagement in the race by the under 30 voter in 2010?
Well, we're hearing from a lot of returns that the youth vote was down this cycle. And that speaks volumes, because the Rock the Vote movement that MTV propelled in 2008 was huge. And they created voters who ended up jaded, and they didn't turn out in the polls in the midterm elections for Democrats like they would have wanted.
If moving forward in 2012, we're going to see anything that's competitive between the two sides, will the youth be in that election? And will conservatives and Republicans finally take the step of doing everything that's necessary to engage them? What is your feeling on that? You sit, by the way, Demi's day job is for Concerned Women for America, and so she sits in the Beltway seeing either the engagement or the lack of engagement of the think tanks and the organizations in the Beltway on this. Where do you get the feeling we're headed with the youth vote in the next cycle?
Well, I think definitely they may have made a mistake. The left wing have made a mistake by activating through social media and through activating young voters. They've corralled people who are going to be informed and going to be motivated to vote in 2012 for better or for worse for the Democrat Party. And I think that if we've learned anything as conservatives and Republicans, if we've learned anything, it's how to harness people through social media. And the Obama campaign did a fantastic job with that in 2008. There's no denying that. And if we can learn how to do that and do it well, then I think we've got a really good shot at corralling some young voters.
We're talking with Demi Bardsley. She is with Concerned Women for America, and she also blogs at DemiBardsley.com, and she writes for the Binge Thinker magazine, which is a production of Extreme Media. Demi, I don't know what your numbers were going into last night, but it looks like we've picked up 60 House seats and 6 Senate seats. Some people are selling this as a big win. Some of them, even Geraldine Ferraro last night, saying, oh, it's not going to be the tidal wave you expected. Well, in recent history, 52 was the biggest number. In all-time records, 72 was the number. There are 13 races in the House, still not yet decided. Technically, this could fall into the biggest election win if Republicans ran the table on the rest. But by all other standards, this is a pretty historic night, isn't it?
Absolutely. People are comparing it to the 94 midterm elections, when Daschle actually lost his seat, and we were hoping to unseat Harry Reid in the same way. But we saw a turnover of the House and Senate in 94. Unfortunately, I don't see the Senate turning over at this point. But we've gotten some really huge gains that are comparable to 94.
Yeah. As we move forward, as we strike out into the next 2 years, I've asked this of, I think, all my guests this morning, but there is a temptation to begin to say, now, the Republicans are going to be measured by what they get accomplished. In reality, is stagnation the best we can hope for, or is there any reality, any possibility that the Republicans can get the president to compromise and work together in the next couple of years?
Well, I think we've got the American people on our side. And I think we have a president who's worried enough about a challenger in his own party in 2012 that he's going to probably change his tune a little bit and maybe not try to go along with that extreme leftist ideology that he campaigned on, because it's not working out for him. He's more in line with us conservatives on Afghanistan and Iraq right now than his own party and his own side. And that speaks volumes, because he's got to get realistic. And that means he's going to have to work with the House right now with the Republican majority and Senate that's not too far away from a majority.
Yeah. Well, and they have the power of the filibuster. All right, Demi Bardsley, thank you for getting up early. Thank you for what you're doing for our nation. DemiBardsley.com. And also in the new edition of The Binge Thinker, which will be out in the next few days as well. Coming up next, we take a look at how minorities voted in the process. Rich Valdez will be with us. It's the Kevin McCullough Show. Don't go away.